What if I told you there's enough water in just one Midwestern lake to submerge all of North and South America under a foot of water? Or that back in the 1200s, a Native American metropolis in Illinois was actually larger than London? From a bizarre chunk of land accidentally trapped inside Canada, to the engineering marvel that forced a massive river to flow backward. Here are 15 incredible geography facts you never knew about the Midwest. And of course, we're going to start with what actually makes up the region. Really quick, I just want to mention that I'm going to do a 1 million subscribers celebration live stream on Wednesday, July 15th at 2 p.m. Pacific time. There's going to be Q&A, live reaction to some of my very first videos, and a bunch more, including opening my 1 million subscriber plaque with you live. So I hope to see you there. Let's get this one out of the way right now. Everyone talks about the Midwest, but if you're looking for a universally accepted border on a map, you're not going to find one. The US Census Bureau officially groups 12 states together, bringing in the Great Plains states like the Dakotas, Nebraska, and Kansas. But cultural definitions vary wildly depending on who you ask. Some purists argue that the Midwest should only be the Great Lakes states, effectively shutting out the plains. Others claim that the region stretches as far east as Pennsylvania or western New York. Or they debate whether Ohio even truly belongs. Essentially, the Midwest is as much an evolving cultural vibe as it is a rigid geographic region. So, for the rest of this video, we're strictly planting our flag in 7 core states: Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, and Minnesota. But remember, the boundaries of America's heartland are always up for debate. When people think of massive coastlines, they usually picture California, Florida, or Hawaii. But Michigan holds a geographic record that rivals oceanfront states. It possesses the longest freshwater coastline of any political subdivision in the entire world. Because the state is famously fractured into 2 distinct peninsulas and is bordered by 4 of the 5 Great Lakes, Superior, Huron, Michigan, and Erie, it boasts over 3,200 miles of shoreline. This incredible proximity to water dominates the state's physical geography. In fact, no matter where you stand within the borders of Michigan, you're never more than 85 miles away from the shores of a Great Lake. Furthermore, you're never more than 6 miles from a natural water source of any kind. The Midwest is globally famous for being exceptionally flat, a feature created by huge glaciers that acted like continental bulldozers, crushing and flattening everything in their path. However, those glaciers completely missed a massive mysterious pocket of land known today as the Driftless Area, covering roughly 24,000 square miles across parts of Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and Illinois. This region escaped the crushing weight of the last ice age. Because it was never flattened, the physical geography here looks nothing like the rest of the Midwest. Instead of endless flat plains, the driftless area is defined by deep, rugged river valleys, steep forested ridges, stunning limestone cliffs, and cold water streams. It's a rugged landscape that provides a rare window into what the entire Midwestern region might have looked like before the ice completely leveled the topography of North America. Look closely at the northern border of Minnesota, and you'll spot a weird jagged piece of land jutting up into Canada. This is the northwest angle, and it exists entirely because of a monumental geographic mapping error. During the Treaty of Paris in 1783, negotiators used a highly inaccurate map to draw the border between the US and British North America. They mistakenly believed that the Mississippi River began much farther north than it actually does. As a result of their messy cartography, this tiny chunk of Minnesota became the only place in the contiguous United States located completely north of the 49th parallel. Today, the northwest angle is a true geographic exclave. If you want to drive there from the rest of the United States, you have no choice but to cross the border into Manitoba, Canada, drive for a while, and then cross back into America. Calling Lake Superior a lake almost feels like an insult. Geographically speaking, it's practically an inland freshwater sea. It's the largest freshwater lake in the world by surface area, and the sheer volume of water it holds defies comprehension. Lake Superior contains a staggering 10% of all surface freshwater available on planet Earth. It holds more water than all other Great Lakes combined, plus 3 extra Lake Eries for good measure. To truly understand its scale, Consider this. If you were to empty Lake Superior out, it would contain enough water to cover the entire landmasses of both North and South America in a full foot of water. Its massive size even creates its own weather systems, generating massive gales and terrifying storms that have claimed thousands of shipwrecks over the centuries, proving it's a dominant geographic body of water, more similar to a place like the North Sea than a traditional lake. In 1835, a flawed map nearly triggered a shooting war between Ohio and Michigan. Both sides laid aggressive claim to the Toledo Strip, a tiny 468 square mile piece of land at the mouth of the Maumee River. At the time, Toledo was expected to become a massive commercial port, making it highly valuable real estate. Tensions escalated so much that both the state of Ohio and the territory of Michigan actually raised armed militias and marched them to the border in what became known as the Toledo War. Before massive bloodshed could occur, the federal government forcefully stepped in to mediate. Congress awarded the valuable Toledo Strip to Ohio. As a consolation prize for losing the port, Michigan was granted the entire Upper Peninsula. While Michiganders initially felt cheated, the Upper Peninsula soon proved to be packed with immensely valuable iron and copper deposits, totally altering Michigan's economic history. In the late 19th century, Chicago faced a deadly geographic crisis. The city was dumping its raw sewage directly into the Chicago River, which flowed straight into Lake Michigan, the exact same body of water the city used for its drinking water. Unsurprisingly, this caused massive outbreaks of waterborne diseases like cholera. To save the city, engineers pulled off one of the most audacious geographic projects in recorded history in 1900. By digging a massive 28-mile-long drainage canal, they permanently broke the natural continental divide. This incredible engineering feat physically reversed the flow of the Chicago River. Instead of flowing east into the Great Lakes, the river was forced to flow backwards, carrying Chicago's wastewater south towards the Mississippi River and eventually the Gulf of Mexico. It was a historic triumph of human engineering over natural physical geography, forever altering the hydrology of the American Midwest. Long before European explorers ever laid eyes on the Midwest, the region was home to a staggering indigenous metropolis. Just across the Mississippi River from modern-day St. Louis, in what is now Illinois, lay the ancient city of Cahokia. At its absolute peak during the 13th century, Cahokia was the largest pre-Columbian urban center north of Mexico. Its historic geography is mind-blowing. The city sprawled across 6 square miles, featured over 100 massive earthen pyramids, and supported a population estimated to be between 10,000 and 20,000 people. To put that into historic context, Cahokia had a larger population than the city of London did at the exact same time in history. The crown jewel was Monk's Mound, a terraced earthen structure that covers 14 acres at its base, proving that the Midwest was a densely populated, highly engineered hub of human civilization centuries before colonization. If you ever fly over Midwestern states like Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, or Iowa, you'll immediately notice that the roads, farms, and counties form a remarkably perfect, rigid grid. This mathematical landscape didn't happen organically. It's the direct result of the Land Ordinance of 1785. After the Revolutionary War, the newly formed US government needed to sell off Western lands to pay down its massive debts. To do this efficiently, they implemented the Public Land Survey system. Before settlers even moved in, surveyors physically marched across the wilderness, dividing the entire region into perfectly square 6x6 mile townships, which were further subdivided into perfectly square 1-mile sections. This historic piece of legislation permanently stamped a rigid, mathematical checkerboard onto the natural geography of the Midwest, dictating exactly how roads were paved, how farms were partitioned, and how human life expanded across the American frontier. Chicago didn't grow into an economic megacity by accident. It was birthed by a tiny, seemingly insignificant geographic fluke known as the Chicago Portage. When early French explorers arrived in the area, Native Americans showed them a muddy 6-mile stretch of swampy land. This incredibly short portage was the only thing separating the massive Great Lakes watershed from the sprawling Mississippi River watershed. Historically, this meant that traders could paddle from the East Coast drag their canoes through the short stretch of mud, and then paddle all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. It was the ultimate geographic choke point. Because of this tiny mudflat, Chicago became the crucial linchpin connecting the industrialized East to the agricultural West, transforming a desolate marsh into a booming hub of railroads, canals, and commerce, cementing its place as the capital of the Midwest. The Mississippi River is one of the most defining geographic features of the North American continent. It's a massive, incredibly powerful waterway that famously divides the eastern United States from the West, serving as a superhighway for commerce and draining water from 31 different US states. Yet its physical origin story is surprisingly humble. If you travel to Lake Itasca, in the thick forests of northern Minnesota, you can find the exact headwaters where this continental behemoth begins. Here, the legendary Mississippi River is nothing more than a tiny, crystal clear stream tumbling out of a lake. At this point, the river is only about 18 feet wide and an ankle deep. Visitors regularly roll up their pants and simply wade across the rocks, easily taking a few steps across a river that will eventually grow to be over a mile wide by the time it reaches the Gulf of Mexico. When you picture Iowa today, you are likely imagining endless rolling fields of corn and soybeans stretching into the horizon. But that iconic landscape is an entirely human-made phenomenon. Before European settlers arrived in the 19th century, the state of Iowa was roughly 80% tallgrass prairie, a vibrant, incredibly diverse ecosystem, teeming with wildflowers, deep-rooted grasses, and roaming bison. Today, the reality is starkly different. Over 99% of that original native prairie has been systematically plowed and transformed to create the agricultural powerhouse we now call America's Corn Belt. From a purely ecological standpoint, Iowa holds the title of the most biologically altered state in the entire country. The deep, rich topsoil, created by thousands of years of prairie growth, is exactly what made it so perfect for farming. But harnessing that power meant completely erasing the natural geography that created it. The Motor City wasn't built where it is by mere accident or coincidence. Detroit's existence and rise to industrial dominance are completely tied to a strategic geographic choke point. The very name Detroit translates to strait in French, which perfectly describes its location. French colonists founded the city on the Detroit River, a narrow 24-mile-long waterway that serves as a crucial connector between Lake Huron and Lake Erie. In the early days of North American exploration, whoever controlled this tight waterway effectively controlled the lucrative fur trade and the movement of military ships throughout the Great Lakes. Centuries later, this exact same geographic advantage made Detroit the perfect spot to receive colossal shipments of raw materials, like iron ore from the Upper Peninsula and coal from the South, by water. Without this natural bottleneck, the booming American auto industry might have found a completely different home. If you ever travel to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan or the northern reaches of Minnesota, you'll find the highest concentration of Finnish ancestry in the United States. This isn't a random demographic quirk. It's the direct result of natural human migration patterns. When Finnish immigrants arrived in North America in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, they naturally gravitated towards landscapes that mirrored their homeland. The rugged boreal forests, the thousands of glacially carved lakes, the rocky soil, and of course the notoriously brutal, freezing winters felt exactly like Finland. Because the physical geography was so familiar, they settled in massive numbers to work in the region's copper and iron mines and to harvest the timber. Naturally, they brought their deep-rooted cultural traditions with them, most notably the sauna. Today, this freezing forested corner of the Midwest is affectionately known as the sauna capital of the US. Indiana proudly claims the state motto, the crossroads of America. And from a human geography perspective, this is a completely literal description. Indianapolis isn't just a major Midwestern city. It's the ultimate logistical nerve center of the United States. More intersecting interstate highways converge in Indianapolis than in any other major metropolitan area in the country. If you're moving freight, driving cross-country, or shipping goods from coast to coast, there's a massive statistical probability your route will slice right through Indiana. This wasn't always about asphalt either. Historically, the state served as the critical junction point for early national roads and massive railway networks connecting the industrialized East Coast to the expanding western frontier. Today, its flat, accessible geography continues to make it the undisputed hub of American trucking and transportation. The Midwest is one of the most fascinating regions in the United States. Even the very idea of what the Midwest is constantly up for debate, proving once and for all that geography simply doesn't follow political borders. This was a super fun exploration of the Midwest, and if you want to dive deeper into what actually constitutes the Midwest, well, I have an article all about it over on my geography community site, thebite.co. So head over there and subscribe if you want more geography content delivered straight to your email. I hope you enjoyed learning all about the American Midwest. If you did, be sure to check out this video with 15 facts about the North Sea. Thanks for watching. See you next time.